Alright lads, let's crack on, shall we? So the recap is we are fat and sassy. All we've got to do is get re-elected so that we can keep implementing all of our excellent policies and raise our country to the next level. Get the economy absolutely humming. I mean, it was already humming, but it would lack ambition to be happy with that. And what did I say for us this time? Another soap opera? No, a television interview. Alright. We're going to have to play this one straight down the line. We could win or lose the election on the basis of how we answer this. A good television performance can break an election campaign. Alright. The makeup crew had just finished their preparations for the interview. Just check that I am actually recording. Yeah, right, sweet. Lucien stopped me on the way out to the balcony of the Blue Mansion where the filming crew was standing ready to start filming. Are you ready for the interview, sir? Yes. Good, I have done my best to make this happen. This is very important for our administration. The crew is ready to start filming. Mr. Saka is excited to interview you. Pardon me. So there's probably going to throw me a bunch of curveballs. As I explained before, it would be bad press to decline this interview offer. They are the most prestigious interview program in the world, and they are from Cairo. The country is known for his neutrality. I don't think there will be too much pressure. It's fine, I can handle it. I walked to the balcony and sat on the seat prepared for me, directly in front of Mr. Saka. Mr. President, welcome to One-on-One. Dum-dum, ba-da-da-dum-dum-dum. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you. Let us begin with the latest incident between Swordland and Rumburg. An aircraft of the Swedish Air Forces was shot down by Rumburgian anti-air guns a few weeks ago. Officials from the Rumburgian government proclaimed that the aircraft was flying inside the airspace of Rumburg. Just a few days after the incident, Swedish anti-air guns shot down a Rumburgian airplane. This time, your government proclaimed exactly the same, while the Rumburgian government insisted that their plane was inside their airspace. Many argue that this was not a coincidence and the Swedish army acted intentionally in retaliation. Did you give such an order? Let's see. No, I didn't. Our forces only acted in response to their breach of our airspace. False, but, plausible. Yes, it was done in retaliation. They attacked us first illegally inside our own airspace. True, but maybe not necessarily wise. 3, their claim is nonsense. Our plane was shot down inside our borders. So this is a classic politician trick, right? You answer the question that you wish that they had asked you. So we're going to go with number 3. But what about the attack from your side? It doesn't seem like an accident. Why aren't you asking about the first attack? They started all this? Defensive, not good. Their plane breached our airspace and our forces only acted in response to that. That is the correct option. And then the third one is it's not an accident, it was done in retaliation for their attack. Again, true, but probably unwise. Are you saying that the Rumburgian officials are lying? Are you absolutely certain that their plane was inside Swedish airspace? I'm absolutely sure they breached our airspace. True, but not as strong as I would like. Yes, they lied in both instances. They were harassments against Swordland. Yeah, that's probably the first one. Why aren't you asking about the first attack? They started all this. Again, defensive. No, just come out and say it. Look, they lied. Do you believe these harassments could lead to an actual war between Swordland and Rumburg in the future? I hope not. We are willing to do what it takes not to create a conflict. Weak. I honestly doubt that. I believe that's what Rumburg wants. They've been working to get a justification for such an action. And we will have to see, but if they want war, we will give them war. So number 4 is definitely the strongest. And probably a little too strong. I believe that's what Rumburg wants. They have been working to get a justification for such an action. Yeah, that's the one for us. This week, the Kazian government has condemned Rumburg for their actions against Swordland. Now that Swordland is also a member of the ATO, do you think this would deter Rumburg from creating a broader conflict? That's not even a question. Queen Beatrice is not crazy enough to go against the whole of ATO. True, and pretty strong. Yes, I will surely deter them from creating a war, but they will likely continue their harassments in other ways. Good answer. 3, I'm not sure. Rumburg sees itself as the third superpower of this world. We can expect anything from them. I'm going to go with number 2, even though what I would prefer to say is, very likely they will continue with like border conflicts and that kind of thing. But I don't think they'll go all out against the whole of ATO. Yeah, number 2. Alright, good. You have earlier claimed that Rumburg has been spying on your administration, and the alleged spy was none other than your own secretary. Rumburg has since denied all your claims. He stared into my eyes, awaiting a response. And, of course they would deny it, however Swordland knows the truth. We have all the evidence it was them. The world should know about Rumburg's interference in its neighbours. That's correct. This is a very serious accusation, Mr. President. Well, the scandal caused by that resulted in Mr. Victor in leaving the office. He was blamed, and you appointed a new vice president. Many claim that this was just an internal political move designed to eliminate the vice president. What do you have to say about these accusations? We've recently lost Mr. Victor, and I don't appreciate you asking me such a question. He was a friend of mine. Pivoting to emotionality, I mean, that's a useful way to get out of questions if you don't want to answer them, but in this case, I can just give the truth. It's all nonsense. We have evidence she was working for Rumburg. Her real name was Ilana Vance. 3, I just laugh at these baseless accusations. I talked about this in detail in the past. You can check what I've said. I'm just going to go for the full accusation. Bam. Don't you think you were partly to blame? She was your secretary. It was going on right under your nose. To some extent, yes, all of our administration shares the responsibility for letting such a scandal take place. I mean, I don't want to have to take the blame in public, but on the other hand, it does look better than trying to weasel my way out of it. First, I'm not responsible for processing background checks. Second, it wasn't me who employed her. And yeah, how weaselly does that sound exactly? I'm not responsible for processing background checks, and second, it wasn't me who employed her. Yeah, I don't think that's too weaselly. I can say that. She was your secretary. It was going on right under your nose. I don't want to repeat myself here. I've already talked about this earlier. That's just a straight evasion. I'm going to go for number 2. I think that's the way forward. He didn't look like he was satisfied by my response. He stopped for a moment and took a brief look at his papers. Okay, let's return back to your foreign policy. Let's talk about the ongoing conflict about the Helgeland Island. Swordland is not officially taking any sides between Agnolia and Valgsland. So far, you have refrained from making any statements about the conflict. According to reports from yesterday, Valgslandian Navy had finally attacked the Agnolian fleet at Helgeland Island. So what I'm going to do here, if I have the possibility, I'm going to say something along the lines of, we can only pray for peace in these difficult times, or something like that, right? Today, Prime Minister Van Houten announced that the island is indeed under an invasion. He said Valgslandian troops landed on the island. So here's my question. What is and will be the role of Swordland in this conflict? Swordland has and will have no role in this conflict. We are not taking any sides, correct? Number 2, we stand with Valgsland in their rightful intervention on the island. Nope. We stand with the people of Helgeland. We stand together with the Agnolian government. We are just going to stay completely out of it. Would Swordland also get involved if the situation gets out of control? Swordland has no intentions in intervening in other nations' conflicts. See, this is the non-interventionist policy, right? What do they call it? Isolationism. There's a big dispute in the international relations community about exactly when is it okay to intervene in other nations. Theoretically, under the rules that the UN was set up under, it's never. But if you're invited in, why not? and then they tried to pioneer the responsibility to protect, so that you would so that other states could claim to have a responsibility to protect citizens of state people who weren't their own citizens if their own state was not doing it. But of course that was used as a justification for invasions, so it's kind of fallen into disrepute to a certain degree now. Although we might see it come back again under the new administration in the US. So, what does that mean for Swordland? As a peacekeeping force, we can't let Markian Sea turn into a war zone. I hope the situation won't come to that. Swordland has no intentions in intervening in other nations' conflicts. See, the thing is, I would like to provide some pressure that Valgsland to kind of keep Valgsland on their toes so that they don't know what our reaction would be. And I mean, they're never going to trust what I say anyway. But I want to put across the impression that if they were to actually go full invasion, they wouldn't know whether I would intervene or not. I'm not going to intervene because we don't have a navy that is worthy of taking out the Valgslandian navy. Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm going to go with number 1 because that makes it sound like, they might have to take both of us on, which might restrain them a little. It's tough. I was very tempted by number 3. Okay, let's move on to another topic. Last year, a huge conflict took place close to your borders with Valen, when the Vizek forces partook in the massacre of Bludish civilians under the guise of eliminating the Bludish Freedom Front. Swordland decided to watch the atrocities take place. In fact, you not only closed the borders to the refugees fleeing from a massacre, your border guards worked in cooperation with the Vizek forces. Will you accept responsibility for thousands of lives that were lost in Valen? Let's see. Of course not. We had nothing to do with what went on inside Valen. We only protected our borders. A little evasive, but, maybe. It's true we worked with Mr. Schmolek, but I don't think anybody can blame Swordland for protecting its borders. A little bit too much admission there. It breaks my heart to see so many people die in Valen. Could we have done something? Definitely, but the conflict had nothing to do with us. Yeah, well, number 3 is kind of the Pontius Pilate move, right? The conflict had nothing to do with us. Yeah, a more isolationist stance, right? Now you see the problem is because I can look like a hypocrite here for saying that I would send peace forces into the Markian Sea. Now if I choose number 3, they'll say, well, why don't you send peace forces then? And it's like, well, because I don't actually want to start a war with the Vizek. I'm going to go with number 3. Alright. Many have criticised Swordland for its role in this conflict. Do you not accept any of the criticisms? Sure, we could have helped the refugees, but then again, how do we distinguish civilians from militants? No, there's nothing wrong with protecting our country. Our role? Really? Why don't you ask Mr. Schmolek these questions? Yep, number 3. You could have, on the gesture of the director, he stopped before finishing the sentence. Well, it seems that's all the time we have for today. The director shouted at the crew to stop recording. We both stood up and shook hands. Thank you for your valuable time, Mr. President. It was a pleasure. Hopefully next time we'll meet again in Kairut. He smiled. Of course, Mr. President. You would always be welcome in Kairut. Lucian walked up to the director and started talking to him. I went inside the building. Alright, I think I handled that one alright. I'm sure I've got the wind up a few people, and the Blues, already don't like me, but whatever. I don't need to be liked. Okay, a lot of news today. Workers' Party announces Lek as their replacement for Egil. Swordland's darkest hour. During Swordland's darkest hour, President Rain took the reign and led the country out of depression. Millions of jobs added, countless businesses opened, and myriad investors pouring into Sordland. Economists and foreign leaders predict Sordland will be an economic giant in the long run, while historians will engrave the great Swordish recovery to Sordland's record. Yeah, I like the sound of that. Mansoon Lekker's back at the WPB. Rain enacts housing assistance. Living standards suffer. Lowest in history, even before the time of kingdom. Yeah, but and what, does that not include the housing assistance? Of course, you don't never get any credit, right? Socialist housing in Sordland. The Minister of Economy revealed that the administration will roll out a new housing assistance program. The plan is designed to help low-income families and solve homelessness in Sordland. However, Sordland's Conservatives are calling the policy to be a socialist one. Many are denouncing the president for pushing out communist ideas. Wowee, I think that's a bit harsh. Under the president's brilliant leadership, Sordland has lifted itself out of the Great Depression. Jobs and investments are returning in the millions and thousands as the country's GDP rises without signs of stopping. Undeterred and unhindered by the crisis, the president steered the nation onward. With this momentum, Sordland is destined to be the golden apple of the Merkapa region. It appears that the best is yet to come. Come on, I'm definitely going to get re-elected with the newspapers going on about that kind of thing, right? Valgsland occupies Helgeland. Omek announces the expulsion of Rumburg. This morning, Valgslandian forces has occupied Helgeland with only a small amount of casualties when the forces of Helgeland surrendered with the invasion that was executed yesterday. After the surrender, Chancellor Hegel had reclaimed Helgeland as part of Valgsland and described the events as a triumph of freedom and a reversal of historical injustices. Alright, so if I get the opportunity, I'm going to use this as a stick to beat Valgasland with, diplomatically, right? Something along the lines of invasions are not the way to solve international disputes. So this is exactly what we've come to expect from the members of CSP. You know, surely they could have resolved this issue at the discussion table or something, that kind of thing. Obviously it's all fluff and nonsense, but nevertheless, that's how diplomacy is done. Agnolian leader Van Houten condemned the invasion and the AN for leaving Agnolia alone and not interfering. This was a drastic first step of Valgslandian and Malenjevist invasion in eastern Merkapa, and I'm warning those who allowed them to do this. This is how liberty dies, he said. Agnolian Navy has also returned back to Stalport after a brief firefight with the Valgslandian forces. Alright, well, it doesn't sound like it's going to break out into something bigger because the Valgslandians won easily enough. Omek announces expulsion of Rumburg. Nice. Following his latest TV interview, President Rain seems to be successful so far in receiving the backing of the international community. That's right. Led by Sordland's request, Omek has decided to expel Rumburg from the Eastern Merkapin Economic Forum. Undoubtedly a drastic and surprising resolution, this move will sever the long-strained economic ties of Rumburg with the organisation. Queen Beatrice Livingston refrained from making any comments yet. Alright, I mean, you know, when it's good, it's good. Alright, what else we got? 3 reports here. Okay, let's do the little one first. Read the report from Sana. WPB leader poisoned. Leader of the Workers' Party of Bludia, Feta Ejel, was poisoned by a nerve agent and was hospitalised in a serious condition. During the trip to Sana to deliver a speech for his campaign, he suddenly became ill and was immediately taken to a hospital in the city. This is the ethnic minority communists, right? Okay, and what about this one? Bludish opinion low. Unrest is rampant in Dire, with sentiment for President Rain at an all-time low. Bludish citizens have faced oppression on par with President Sol's government. Bludish activists in Dire are calling for President Rain's resignation, and if their demands are not met, protests are expected to follow. That's fine, you're allowed to protest, don't have a problem with that. And read the report from Lochhaven. Well-received PR visit. Following a brief visit to Lochhaven, the President spent the afternoon meeting and taking photos with jubilant citizens at Republic Avenue. The enthusiasm displayed was not unexpected. It was clear the citizens were delighted to witness their popular President in person. Yes, well, you know, I'm pretty great, so... Alright, a report from Holsword. Mansoon might return to WPB to fill Egel's role. Oh yeah, no, don't care about those minor parties. Early morning at the Rain household. As usual, I woke up early in the morning. I put on my clothes and went downstairs, made a cup of finely ground Swedish coffee along with a slice of buttered toast, and sat down in front of the TV to watch the morning news. I changed the channel to SBC News and took a bite of my toast. I am curious to see what President Rain's response will be. For those who are tuning in late, today is certainly going to be a rough day for the administration. We have confirmation about the certainty of these leaks. This is nothing short of a major scandal that could very well lead to the impeachment of President Rain. What? As per recent information we have received, President Rain's name is mentioned many times in these leaks. According to the documents, she picked up the paper in front of her and started reading. As part of the privatisation process, President Rain sold shares in a backroom deal to Marcel Caronti. We have been trying to reach out to the Maroon Palace about these allegations and scandals. However, we have been unable to reach anyone yet. Right. Turn off the TV. Ah dear. Well, let's see how this goes. Hopefully the media man in Conriat will be able to smother this. This would be a good time to call in a deal. Media was bought by Rain. The Maroon Palace must be ashamed of itself. Our very own president has brought influence in the media through oligarch Caronti to spin the news to his will, restricting the freedom of speech that is so essential to our country. Rain has violated our constitutional rights and betrayed the trust of the country. It is well deserved that he should face impeachment as soon as possible. Wowee. Brookhaven Times. Lies, lies, and tell me more little lies that have spilled from President Rain's lips are revealed in front of national television. Our nation is used to betrayal, but not at this scale. Ah, yeah. What a bunch of BS. I think we should be able to fluff this away. Private meeting with Lilius Graf. The historic Graf Manor lay on the outskirts of Avery at the end of a long, winding drive. Nearly 2 centuries old, it was as formidable as Lilius herself. Lilius had invited me here for a private dinner, just the two of us. I wasn't sure of her motivations, but was happy to have an excuse to escape the chaos back in Holsword. Serge dropped me off at the door. I used the heavy brass knocker to signal my arrival. The butler answered and showed me into the parlour. Gas lanterns lent the wood-panelled room a cosy orange glow. Lilius was sitting on the sofa. Above her hung a nearly life-sized portrait of a sallow, unhappy-looking young woman in a lace ball gown. Is that your grandmother? My mother, actually. I was her only child, you know. Giving birth to me left her medically unable to conceive. My father could never forgive her for not bearing him a son, and she never forgave me. Oof, cold. She took a measured sip of one of the 2 glasses of sparkling wine she was holding and handed me the other. Sounds like a painful childhood. The silver lining is that despite personally despising me, they felt compelled to grant me all of the advantages a son would have had, including the education I needed to rise to my current position. Would you be so kind? Nice story. Why am I here? Given how your wife spends her time these days, I thought you might be in need of a home-cooked supper. The butler silently stepped into the parlour and rang a silver bell. Speaking of which, she led me into the dining room where a glittering chandelier hung from the high ceiling. Beneath it was a long table set for 2. A woman in an apron and a chef's hat, Vezek by her appearance, ceremoniously presented a roast rack of venison. It smells delicious. The groundskeeper shot it this morning. Yum. I can do with a bit of venison right now, I tell you what. It was some of the best meat I'd ever had. We ate in silence for a while, and then Lilius pensively laid down her cutlery. Anton, I want you to know that I have nothing but respect for you. Well, I respect you too. But given certain developments that have occurred over the course of your term, I believe you are no longer fit to lead the United Swordland Party. I wanted you to be the first to know that I myself will be running against you at the party congress. What the hell do you mean, unfit? Don't play dumb with me. Did you think I'd sit by as you made a mockery of this country's constitution? The very constitution that is keeping this nation safe from internal and external threats? You're a disgrace to the good name of Tarquin Sol. How much money will it take for you to stay on my side? Do I look like I need money? I'm doing you a courtesy tonight. I didn't want to surprise you at the Congress, and I wanted to give you time to consider backing me. Sorry, Lilius, I can't back down now. I understand. I'll tender my official resignation once we're both back in Holsword. I rose from my chair. It's a shame to lose you. I understand now why you never found a husband. Oof! May the best man win then. May the best man win then. I'll have the butler show you out. Alright. I mean, you got to expect this kind of thing coming up to the elections, I suppose. Minister of Interior, Graf resigns. And what does the radical have to say? Graf throws in the towel. Yeah. Okay. Cabinet changes. Empty seat for Minister of the Interior. Wonder who I could promote to that. ATO modernises Air Force with new planes. Swordland's Minister of Defence, General Josef Lankea, is reporting that we have received the supplies and new aircraft from ATO. Nice. According to his report, we have added F-16 fighter jets and Ventry Express VE-34 bombers to our Air Force. Equipped with modern avionics, more accurate radar-guided gun sights, and a superior weapons loadout, the Swordland S-16 supersonic jet fighter gives our air forces a decisive edge in aerial combat, their speed and manoeuvrability now exceeding our pilots' expectations. They are nicknaming these new aircraft as Akazian Hornets. Fantastic. That's great. Alright, a military parade. Cool. It was an unusual day for the residents of Holsword. Regularly used streets and avenues were blocked off by the military personnel. Many shops and cafes were closed, and once crowded stores were now empty. Instead, thousands of residents in Holsword were concentrated in one street, Victory Avenue. Stretching out through the heart of Holsword, people on many sides of the road were waving their Swordish flags proudly for the military parade. I was getting prepared to embark on my trip. It was going to be a short drive down the Victory Avenue until we reached Maroon Palace. My company for this trip was Joseph, with Serge, as usual, driving the presidential car. Joseph approached me. He was wearing his decorated ceremony outfit. He carried a sword with a goat head at the handle and a pistol by his hip. He put on his cap. We're almost ready, and we will depart right after the tank column. Rumberg will think twice after today. They will tremble before the Swordish military might. After hearing the loud thump of a book falling down to the floor, he turned to a couple privates that were doing the preparations on the schedule and started walking in their direction. "Private, can't you do your job properly?" I watched the young soldiers perform a lousy salute. "What is that salute, soldier? This is a real salute." He performed an excellent salute, and after scolding the privates, he walked back. Is it time yet? Very soon. Mr. President, Mr. Lankea. At ease, Mr. Volkner. Are we ready to depart yet? Yes, sir. Follow me, please. Have you seen the tanks? Our planes too? Rumberg will be so scared when they see this. Yep, that's the plan. A great one, I'd say. My kids were very excited to wake up today. To see the planes fly. Serge, where did you do your military service? Morna, 7th Artillery Squadron. I still talk with many of my friends from those days. Camaraderie of the military is never forgotten. I still talk with many from my days as well. And what about you, sir? All over Swordland. Mr. President was under my command once. Gumran Outpost. He turned to me. You remember those days? Who can forget about Marja Lankea? We called him the Relentless. Good days. Well, here we are. We exited the building and walked over to the clearance where the black Cadillac, gotcha. The presidential car was waiting. It was decorated properly for the event, and the top canopy had been removed so that we could stand and wave to people. On the way to the car, generals and admirals were lined up on both sides of the carpet. The atmosphere immediately changed when those experienced men who fought many times for their country saluted me. I saluted back with respect. I saluted the high-ranking military staff and attachés from ATO. We shook hands before proceeding. We entered the car and Serge started the engine. Joseph was standing right next to me. The car started rolling. Even though there were many walls and trees in between the car and the crowd, I was able to hear the deafening sounds of cheering Swordish citizens. Gradually we made our way to the starting point. A group of 10, maybe 12 latest technology F-16 fighter jets flew above our heads, and I thought that the engine sounds were going to leave me deaf. Loud footsteps of the marching soldiers were followed by loud noises coming from tank engines. The tanks came into view. They were not the most modern models, however they displayed our military might. I hadn't even finished my thought and one of the tanks broke down and had to be towed. We waited for a few minutes for the announcement. Finally it was our turn. On both sides of Victory Avenue there were numerous citizens cheering my name and waving their Swordish flags. Alright. I guess I am a military guy after all. Looking at the benches where the General Staff was sitting at, I saw Tarquin Sol sitting next to General Valken. We kept our slow and steady pace. We were almost at the Artur S. Visci statue, several hundred metres away. A group of soldiers saluted me as we passed by. They looked proud and stout in the new infantry uniforms with brand new rifles. We continued on as per the schedule and finally arrived at the Maroon Palace, which marked the end of the parade. People of Holsword dispersed to their homes. A clear message was sent to Rumburg by the display of our military might. We were about to see whether it would be enough or not. Wow, fingers crossed. Oh, and here comes the turn marker. That must mean that's it for today. Alright, I'll see you on the next one, lads.